Coming up next.
Hey there, friend. We're going to do some work today. I want you to reflect on that thing that just keeps ruminating in your mind. You keep pulling it out of the drawer, taking it out, tussling it around. It may be a decision that you're trying to make. It may be something from your past that you just haven't quite settled. Whatever the thing is, we're going to work on settling it today. Calming the noise. Now, I'm going to speak specifically from the vantage point of making a decision. And these are not your typical, what am I making for dinner tonight? Although, if you're anything like me, man, is that enough to do some days. We're actually going to pull out those things that, think about the thing that your husband's like, are we really talking about this again? You wake up in the morning, it's on your mind. What do we do for the kids for school? What do we do about our aging parent who has this deep level of need? These are the multifaceted decisions for which there are no easy answers.
Welcome to Overwhelmed to Overcomer podcast with coach, encourager, and strategist Anna McLaughlin. If you're a Christian woman who has big dreams rooted in an even bigger God, but most days those dreams feel completely out of reach, trust me, I get it. As a homeschooling mama of 4, entrepreneur, investor, and all-around wearer of many hats, I am right there with you. And yet the Lord invites us to live out our God-given purpose now, in the midst of the madness. So, let's explore together how we can know our calling and walk in it today. With clarity, with courage, with each other. It's time for you to live the life you love and love the life you live. Let's do this thing.
I want to provide for you. This is actually in no small part why people hire me as a coach. This is what people come to coaches for, they come to therapists for, they come to strategists for, they come to their girls' night out dinners with their best friend for. These are the things that we just can't seem to settle. And I'm going to offer you some strategies that my coaching clients have said over time, gosh, that was so helpful, or that I just use in my own life with great fruit. So I'm inviting you, consider it kind of a sampler platter. I'm going to invite you to some tools that I have used with others, that I've used in my own life, that have really helped to settle the thing. So we're going to keep the focus on a decision specifically, but this can also be used, as you'll find, many of these tools can be used for just quieting the busy brain in general, especially if there's something kind of a wound that we haven't healed from yet that we're still trying to wrestle with. I do have some other episodes that specifically deal with how do we navigate past hurts. So you can look at, gosh, I need to think about the titles. I'll try to drop that in the show notes as well. Okay. So again, we're calming that storm that rages in our minds. So I want you to first just take a minute and we're doing the work on this call. Okay. So if you were sitting on a coaching call with me, this is what I would lead you through. Of course, on those calls, I know your story. You've gotten to kind of do that filtering work of just dumping it all out on the desk. I'm listening for those golden threads to pull on. Okay. But we're going to do what we can right here on this podcast because I want you to leave these conversations shifted. Okay. I don't want this to just kind of sit. That's the end. All right. Like now I got to go implement. I listened to what to do. Now I got to go do it. No, we're going to do it here because your time is precious and it matters. So I want you to just take a moment and I want to invite you to put your hand on your heart. This is a beautiful way to just feel a sense of connection with ourselves, connection with the Holy Spirit who is indwelling us because we are now the temple of the Most High God. Because of Christ and his work, he dwells within us. And I'm going to pray over you. Lord, I pray for this woman who's listening, who wants so much to be faithful to you. And there's something she just keeps pulling out of the desk. And she mulls over it and she ruminates and she tussles through it. Lord, first, please bring clarity to what it is that's kind of always running in the background. That tab that's always open, that's just taking up space and energy that she wants freed up for your kingdom work. Let today be a day where she's set free, where there's a deeper level of clarity, a deeper sense of just just vision for what you're inviting her into. If there's anything that needs to be laid down, show that to her. And I pray that this would be a conversation that is rich, where there's a before and after moment for the woman who's listening, where she feels unlocked and set free. So bring to mind what she is invited to bring before you today, what you're ready to unlock for her, and let this be a fruitful time. Amen. Okay, so hopefully you've got in mind that thing. It's kind of the gorilla on your back. What am I going to do with this thing? Where do we go from here? How do we handle this? And it can be all kinds of things. It could be credit card debt. It could be a relationship that's struggling where like a conversation needs to be had, but what do we even say? How do I even start it? Where do we go? We always end up in the same place. It's not working, right? Could be like for us, one of those ones that's always lingering in the background is our house is just it just doesn't feel restful. How do we help it feel restful? It could be the needs of a child or maybe the whole family that dynamic. It could be a rhythm that we want to build in. Like we want to be more faithful with having our Bible time as a family, with doing family devotionals, but we always end up in the same spot. Okay, where do we need that clarity? Either making a decision or implementing something or reckoning with something. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to give you a handful of tools and you can jot these down or you can just kind of revisit this list over time later, come back to this. And literally anytime there's a decision to be made, you can come back to this episode and listen again. Okay. The first thing I want to invite you to do, I call it time traveling. One of the most powerful tools I learned when I became a coach through my certification process is helping draw people out of the present moment as a way of getting greater clarity. Okay. So, and I use this with my clients a lot. I'm going to invite you. I want you to think about, say that there's a decision that needs to be made today. Okay. Or in the next week. It's coming up. It's imminent. And that's what you're working through right now. I want to draw you out, not to tomorrow, not to a week from now, not to a month from now, but I want to draw you out about 90 days in the future. Okay. That's about how far, and my understanding is that's about how far that we can really conceptualize and plan for. Okay. If you want to, if someone says, tell me where you want to be 10 years from now, that's kind of a dream, right? There's not any practical to it. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I can kind of visualize how would something shift in 90 days. So we're going out, we're in August right now. We're going out to say the end of this year. Okay. So I want you to, in your mind, go to the end of this year. It's about to be 2027. You're getting ready to move into the new year. And I want to invite you to look back to today. From this place where the decision's been made, the die's been cast, the action has been taken, or the situation has been resolved or carried through. Okay? I want you to zoom out to the end of this year. And listen, if this is something that maybe that's not close, like maybe that's too close, right? Because it's really a decision that's going to have to be, played out over a longer period of time than that. That's fine. You can go further out, but we're going to zoom out in time, pick the date that makes the most sense. But for most of you, it's probably going to be the end of this year. And I want to invite you to imagine that you're sitting there. Close your eyes if you can, if you're not driving. I want to invite you to look back to today with the following thought. I'm so glad that I took this action. I am so grateful that I went through this process. I am so thankful that we chose this way of doing things. Okay. And just to keep it simple, let's say, okay, it's August. Let's say that there's a decision to be made about your child's school. Okay. Are we going to go to private school? Are we going to homeschool? Are we going to do public school? Is it the charter school? Is it this school? Are we applying somewhere? What are we doing? Right. So for something like this that's got a pretty long trajectory, we may not know by the end of the year. We're actually going to go to 18. Okay. Our child's 18. They're getting ready to launch to college. Go out to that moment full of pride, full of gratitude, so incredibly blown away that you have had the privilege of walking alongside this human being for this stretch of time, to have them living in your home. I want to take you back to that moment right now. So you're in the future looking back to today. I am so thankful that we did this, right? And we can't know, right? But what time travel helps us identify is it helps us to sit with circumspection and go, okay, what do I really value? I can't know the results, but I want to know I left it all on the field, right? I want to know that we took the brave step, whatever that may be. That might mean because when we're sitting today, we're worried about things like our resources. If we apply to that school, that's going to take a lot of time. There's a $200 application fee that we won't get back. There's uncertainty because we don't know who they're going to find there. But when we're out in the future, we can say, oh, but I know I was brave. But I know that I was trusting the Lord. I know we took actions in alignment with our values. We wanted a smaller school. We wanted a school that was more focused on discussion. We wanted a school that was focused on how to think, not just what to think. And we did the hard thing even though it was scary, even though it cost us something, even though it was uncertain, right? Because when we're out in the future, we really recognize at the end of the day, these are the things I care about. But when we're stuck in this present moment, it's kind of like trying to see what's going on around us when we're like in the basin of a valley. You know, everything's all distorted and you're kind of stuck in the middle of the thing. But when you get up in the airplane and you hover above, then you're like, oh, clarity. We cannot control the outcome, but we do have choice as far as the process. Okay. So that's my first little favorite tool is we're going to time travel. Okay. When there's a big decision to make or everything just feels muddy, time travel to the future. I love it. It's so much fun. When I lead my coaching clients through this, they always say, oh my gosh, that was so helpful. And I'm like, it's the same trick I used 2 weeks ago. There's no change to it. It's the same one I use. I use it in parenting. I use it with my husband and I will have conversations this way. It is a simple trick, but it is amazing how effective it is because it takes us out of the how and the what if and the details, and it brings us into oh, that's right. I remember who we are and what we care about. Okay. So that's the first thing. That's my favorite. I was actually going to do an episode just about this. And I was like, we'll just throw a couple other things out there because I want you to feel walked through. Okay. So that's the first thing we're going to do. Okay. Now, the next thing we're going to do is actually just the opposite. We're going to zoom in really small. Okay. When there is a decision to be made that has vast implications, where there's kind of a cascade effect, we can often get lost because it's like, well, yeah, but I don't really know what's going to fall from there, right? Okay, so say, and I'm just going to we're going to use the school example all throughout because first of all, that's one that I'm completely divorced from, and sometimes when I pick an example that I'm in the middle of myself, I'm like, am I serving you guys well? Because this is actually me working out my story. So we're going to work out someone else's story today, and it's a common one, right? This is something we wrestle with. How do I serve my children in my home? How do I take care of them and lead them through this process of growing up and launching? Okay. So, so school decision again. All right. Okay. So what if we do go with this school route instead of that school route, instead of this school route, instead of these school routes and all the school routes? What if we do it? How do we choose? Right? Okay. I'm going to bring you in real small. And this is the lamp. So we've got time travel. We go way far out, right? Now we zoom in really small and we go to the lamp. We recognize that the word is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. So the first thing I want to offer you is sometimes there's a story in our minds where we're waiting for the burning bush. We're waiting for the bolt of lightning from above, the audible voice of God speaking to our dreams and telling us this is right and this is wrong. Okay. I'm literally like clapping as I'm telling you this because we get stuck on this. And I remember when I was applying for colleges, I was choosing between two like small liberal arts schools, and one was in New Hampshire and the other was in Minnesota. And I remember saying to my mentor at the time, I can't tell what God wants me to do. I just keep praying and I don't hear and I don't know. And I remember she said to me, Anna, sometimes there's not a right and a wrong answer. Sometimes God gives us choice. When we've sifted through, is there anything immoral or out of order? Is there anything in my flesh that's trying to pull me one direction for reasons that would not please the Lord? For example, like, oh, this one's more prestigious, so I'm going to feel like I really belong somewhere, like I've kind of made my mark in the world, right? If we've got some pride in there, we might need to check that. That doesn't necessarily mean that we choose the other option just because the one happens to be more prestigious. It means we have to die to our flesh first, and then we'll actually know, right? And so, and actually, okay, I want to take you on a little tangent really quickly. Yeah, I do. We're going to do it right now. Okay, because I just thought of this and this can be so helpful. Um, when we're young in the faith, sometimes we need some really clear do's and do nots. I am not going to read that type of book because it's going to get me too much in my flesh. For example, maybe for me, and this was not an actual story in my life, but it's just something that's coming to mind, like financial stewardship, right? I want to learn about taking care of my money well. Well, there might, for someone that's really like, and I grab that example because I love financial stewardship, as you might know, being in here. Okay, so there might be someone who's saying, I actually can't read a book like that. I wanted to pick something morally neutral, right? I actually can't read a book like that because it really like gets me kind of obsessive about finances. And then I start to look for provision from my own efforts instead of from the Lord. So I'm just not even going to engage with that. One that is an example for me is there was a season where I just kind of had to set aside Christian romance books, especially where there was some sort of like this this ordinary average dude got caught up and captivated by the love of God, and then all of a sudden he was like the greatest guy ever. Why? Because I was idolizing marriage. I was like, when I get married, my life is going to be complete. And there's going to be some guy out there who, like, and I would actually be tempted to go and date the guys that did not have a rocking relationship with the Lord because of those books. Because wait, the Lord's going to get a hold of them and they're going to be amazing. And I kind of like got my foot in the door. I got my foot in the door early, right? I picked that guy while he wasn't a 10 and now he's a 10. No, let me just say no to that, first of all. But that was a season. Now I'm delightedly married, right? And that kind of trope is not going to knock me sideways in the way that it once did. Okay. So the reason I say that, that was quite the tangent. The reason I say that is because there can be some times where we're thinking, I can't do that at all because I used to stumble over that thing, right? Like, but it might be that as your relationship with the Lord has matured and seasoned, that yes, you can. You're just going to have to be fastened to the vine, right? We've talked about in here, shazak means to fasten. It's the root word for courage, or it's the word that it is the word for courage, but the root is to fasten. We need to hold fast to the vine, okay? And if you haven't listened to that podcast episode yet, that is my absolute favorite recording I've ever done in like 3 years as a podcaster, as a guest, and then having this conversation in Overwhelmed to Overcomer. We need to fasten to the vine. So I just want to invite you as you're in this season of, or as you're reflecting on this making of decisions, do I still need that very firm yes, no, black, white boundary? And I can take you to the scriptures where it talks about, Paul talks about, do we eat the meat or not? When we go to a Gentile's house, can we eat their food? And what he says is if you find out that it's been sacrificed to idols, don't eat it just because you could cause someone to stumble. Okay? But you don't have to ask. And like you're still okay because if you're not led astray by it, then you don't need to be like digging in too deeply here. And then he also talks about at another point, he's saying when we have spiritual milk, we need to be really clear with like, I will do this, I will not do this. When we're living in the spiritual meat season where there's a seasoning and a maturity, then we don't have to be so caught up with the yeses and the nos. Does that make sense? And I didn't grab the scriptures, so I'm paraphrasing a little bit. I think this is Romans 14 where it falls, but there's also one in Corinthians, I believe. Okay, so that's a really broad brushstrokes, but what I want to invite you to is I want you to be discerning. Do I need to be black and white in this, or is there room where maybe there used to have to be black and white? Okay, so that's just a little tangent. Coming back to the lamp, okay? So God's word is a lamp to our feet. It just shows us the very next step. I can't even remember why I went on that tangent, so hopefully all that held together okay now that I'm coming back to the main path. Um, I want you to zoom in really, really close. And instead of deciding, am I like, so for example, let's take the school example. Is my child graduating from school X or is my child graduating from school Y? Your child is 12. We don't need to know whether they are going to walk the trajectory for the next, whatever that is, 6 years. Okay. And one of the most beautiful things that I've had people speak over me at many points in my life is you can always change your mind. You can always change your mind. Okay. And it might be that it's worth taking a moment. I'm just going to invite you to this. And listen, pause the conversation at any point in time that you need to sit with these concepts. If I if I draw this thing out, like what is the actual cost to me if we start to walk down this path? And why I say I want this to be a lamp moment, we're gonna view this as a lamp. So we time traveled, now we're lamping, okay? We'll make that a verb. Um, is I want you to recognize you do not need to do to draw the whole thing out to its ultimate conclusion yet. You're taking the next step, just the next step, right? And this is really interesting. I'm walking alongside someone who's preparing for a surgery, and so in preparation for the surgery, there was a lot of like, well, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this. Okay, okay, okay. What's the next thing that needs to be done? All we have to do today is make a phone call, right? That's all we have to do. Okay, great. So we're going to make that phone call, and we're going to find out how quickly can we get this pre-op appointment, et cetera, all that good stuff. So, um, all we need to do is the next step. If you're looking at this school decision, again, I'm just bringing this as an example so that we have something to wrap our brains around, okay? Something tangible. What's the next step? It's probably filling out an application. It might be looking at the requirements to attend the school. Might be looking at when the start date is, when the cutoff is to apply. Maybe we missed that, and then the decision's made for us for the next year. That's okay. Okay. Closed doors bring clarity. That can be a gift. But we're going to move out of this paralysis. We're going to get in motion, and all we need is the next step. A lot of times, the reason this is so hard for us is because we've got some stories running in the background, though. Okay? Which leads me to my next invitation. Okay, so we need to recognize it's all about just the next step. We need to keep this as a lamp. Okay? We can also use our time travel tool to say, okay, well, how do I want to feel about this moment in time? How I showed up? What will I be so glad that I have done? What will I be celebrating? Because I was courageous, or I was loving, or I was thoughtful, or I was reflective. And I just want to invite you, like, what's growth for you? Is spontaneity growth for you? Is discipline growth for you? Is being still and contemplative growth for you? Is waiting growth? Is moving at a faster pace growth? Is walking forward with trust and confidence growth? Is trusting yourself growth? Is leaning on the advice and guidance of other people growth? Like, what's the growth, right? For somebody that's always really fast at making decisions, it might be that slowing down, waiting, reflecting, and getting outside guidance actually is a big win. On the flip side, somebody who ruminates forever, taking action might be the win, right? Like, let it be less about the rightness or wrongness of the decision. Taking it back to White Squall from the 90s. If you have not seen that movie, there's a lot of guys with shirts off, just fair warning. But it was like my jam in the 90s. And when I went to Labrie Fellowship, Francis Schaeffer's Labrie Fellowship, when I guess it was early 2000s, when I was in college, I took a semester off and went to Labrie in England, which is a wonderful institution whose focus is living out Francis Schaeffer's kind of key tenets for the Christian life, which say if Christianity is true, It can withstand all scrutiny. And if Christianity is true, it impacts every area of our lives. So they offer this. So there's this offered place called L'Abri, which is French for the shelter, and there you explore spiritual principles. You navigate, the ins and outs of the Christian faith. You endeavor to determine what does it look like to live faithfully in this season of my life, and you do it in community, cooking meals together, sitting at table together, doing chores together. It was a beautiful experience. And so with that. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot why I brought this up. Why did I bring this up to you guys? Going to Labrie Fellowship, I lost it altogether. There's no getting it back. I'm going to pause for a second. Okay, so I totally lost why I brought that up to you guys, Labrie Fellowship. I've got it now. Listen, I literally had to stop the recording and rewatch because I was so lost, but I just couldn't stand not giving you the full context of Labrie because it was such a gift. Okay, White Squall was my theme movie while I was packing up and getting ready to go on this grand adventure in the middle of my sophomore year in college. I'd taken a semester off, and here I was going on an adventure, and the one of the taglines of the whole movie was "The journey's the thing." The journey's the thing. It's all about the journey. Let's just dispel the lie that the Lord is standing over you in heaven as this grand judge going, up, you didn't read my mind. Nope, faithless, right? Yes, he gives us his word, and in it are these key principles for life, these key principles for godliness. But friend, they boil down to two things. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Two. That's it. That's the walk. Outside of that, yes, we look to the Lord. We go to him every day. Give me clarity, lead me and guide me. But more often than not, we may find ourselves kind of just nudged in one direction or another as we tenderly, humbly submit our lives to him, as opposed to this like resounding voice from heaven saying, do this or do that. Okay? So I just want to invite you to take the pressure off. Okay? It's not, we are not, and we say this in here so often, we're not the marionettes on the strings. He loves you. And there is a measure of life where he just kind of gives us the paint and the brushes and says, baby, what are you going to make? We talked about it in here. Oh, we talked about it in here. I even got like a little printout for it because it's just so profound to me. There's a beautiful, beautiful poem, not a Christian poem, but we can take Christian truths from it. I think Mary Oliver is her name. I have it up above my desk now. What are you going to do with your one wild and precious life? What a disservice it is to the Lord to think that He just wants us to be these kind of extensions of like these empty vessels for Him to kind of just push around like chess pieces on a board. We are co-heirs with Christ. He's given you your life. Go live it. Go live your life. Okay? So, that said, as we're endeavoring to navigate this thing, not from a place of fear, not from a place of scrutiny of like, what does he want? Does he want me to do this or that? I'm not really sure. But from a place of wise stewardship. Bring it all the way back to our tangent from 5 minutes ago. We're going to utilize the image of the lamp. And we're going to say, okay, he's going to show us the next step. I don't have to figure the whole thing out. I just need to decide, am I going to, so taking it back to the school example, am I going to apply to this school or not? So we might decide, okay, this is a bit overwhelming. I only want to push on 5 doors to start. I'm willing to apply to 3 schools, and then we'll have the public school option, and we'll see about homeschooling. Okay? So we'll do that charter school that's close by. We'll do that private school that we've had our eye on, and then we'll do that other Christian school that's maybe just getting started. It's a little bit newer. It's a little bit smaller. It's more of a drive or whatever it is. 3. That's it. Or maybe it's a resources thing. Each application costs $100. We don't want to spend more than $300 right now. Okay. So next decision. That's it. The Lord will give clarity. But we need to move our sweet feet. We need to get in motion because the motion is the means of clarity. Okay? Now, another invitation, another tool. We're going to refresh our memory on our values. What do we value as a family? What do I value? What does the Lord call me to call important? What does he say is important, right? And we're going to see, is there any further clarifying of this decision? And these aren't in order. This isn't like step one, step two, step three. Again, this is kind of a sampler platter of tools. Okay. So what are the values that I live by? And we actually talked about this. I had a wonderful interview with Andrea Johnson probably like a year and a half ago. And she actually helps bring us through this process of identifying core values. So for me, and it's great, it's like you kind of get a sheet of different values, and then you kind of strike off the ones that don't matter, and that's kind of like the top 80% are easy to eliminate. And then there comes more of like a sifting where you're like, okay, well, I value, I value freedom and personal responsibility, but I feel like between the two of those, like personal responsibility is a reflection of freedom. So maybe ultimately freedom is the higher priority. We're going to do that type of thing, right? And then eventually there comes a point where you're just like, I just love this word. I just love this word. So for me, my three core values that just light me up when I even talk about them are courage, stewardship, and belonging. And we talked about this in here many times. So if I'm looking to make a decision, what decision reflects those? If there's a door number one, two, and three, is there something that's really at bottom, just me playing it safe? And then if I'm time traveling out into the future, that's not going to play well, right? May I not look back on my life and know that I've been playing it safe. And so I'm going to take those values, spread them out on the desk, and look at my decision that's before me through that lens. I'm going to invite you to do the same. And if you're not really sure, like, okay, these are my core values, and you're like, please don't send me to go listen to another podcast right now. I've got this decision to make. There's enough to do. Okay. You don't have to, but you know what you are and what you aren't, right? At bottom, you know. And if you don't know what to grab hold of, okay, I'm a woman of faith. Okay. I'm a woman who trusts Jesus all the way through. I'm a woman who takes action. I'm a woman who, you're here, right? You're here listening to a podcast that's about stewardship, belonging, and courage. You're here for a reason. Okay. Take mine if you want them. Go ahead and take them forever. You don't even have to tell anybody that they're from me. They're yours now, freely given. I have no ownership anyway, right? Okay. So we're going to take these values and we're going to say, okay, I know what I am and what I'm not enough. And I'm going to invite you. And this is where I just wish we were sitting across the phone from each other because we could get there in a minute. More likely than not, when you look at this decision, somewhere in the midst is a story you're telling yourself. So I want you to watch out for where you might say a conclusion that shows what you really believe. Right? So for example, the school decision, there might be a belief about what kind of kids go to a certain kind of school. Oh, those are the stuck-up kids over there. I don't want my kid to be stuck up. Oh yeah, these are the it's been funny hearing my daughter, kind of getting to the age of awareness of starting to say, okay, well, here's what I think. I think kids that go to this school are like. And I'm like, based on what exactly? Based on what? How is it that we've made this decision? Okay, so we need to be really clear. What's the story we're telling ourselves? There was a school that two people I went to high school both went to, and I had a certain sort of opinion about those two people. To this day, 30 years later almost. Not quite. Not quite. We're not going to age me that much. 25 years later, to this day, I have an opinion about that school because of two people that went there 25 years ago. Thousands of young adults have been through those doors since that time, but man, do I still have a story. We get our judgments, we get our fears, we set our definitions, and it can keep us from living the life the Lord has called us to live. Full stop. Okay. So we're just as a refresher, because we're kind of in the weeds. I took you to White Squall. I took you to England at L'Abri. Like we've gone everywhere. Okay. When making the decision, we're time traveling. How am I going to feel about how I showed up like an instant after this moment, right? I'm so glad I showed up in this way. We're going to remember the lamp. We don't need to eat the whole elephant now. We just need to take the next bite. I know that's a gross visual, but there it is. Okay. We need to pull out our values and lay those over top of this decision. Okay. And then we need to take a look at what stories are behind this, really? Well, I want to make, and the stories we tell ourselves are what follow the because. Okay. I don't want to apply to that school because those guys are hardcore there. And I don't want my kid to be all like hardcore because those kids are kind of slackers. I don't want my kid to be a slacker. Based on what, right? Or I'm afraid if they leave my home, I can tell homeschooling's not working right now, but I'm afraid if they leave my home, I'll lose them. We won't be close anymore. Based on what? Okay? So those stories that we tell ourselves can keep us locked into a very small world, right? And sometimes the key to releasing the stories is settling into a deeper emotion. Okay? The story is endeavoring to protect us from living in the uncertainty, right? We think, okay, if I just build my world based on this script, Deborah McNinch came in here and did a beautiful, beautiful podcast conversation, like probably 2 months ago. I think it was end of June. Um, I commend that to you. Talking about how we build these kind of castles in the air of like, oh, here's what my life's going to look like. Right? If I just do X, Y, and Z, if I send my kids to Christian school, if we're in church every time the doors are open, and if my husband and I stay married, we will have strong Christian children. We don't get to bake the cake that way. It doesn't work. Okay? Oh, I wish I did. I wish we did. I wish we could just do that. I'm going to follow this formula and everything's going to be fine. The truth of the matter is, we can't make it be a certain way. We don't get to control the results. And so it might be, sweet friend, that we need to feel a little fear. It might be that we need to walk in some surrender. It might be that we need to grieve how something turned out instead of interposing or extrapolating a formula out of what happened and saying, oh, that friend of mine whose son walked away from the Lord, that's because she and her husband got divorced. As long as that doesn't happen to me, my kids will be fine. Oh, yeah, that one over there who became a college dropout, that's because they didn't homeschool. He didn't have a proper relationship to education. Okay, those are judgments that keep us stuck. At bottom, at the end of the day, we can't keep those things from happening. What we can do is choose how we show up before the Lord, fully surrendered, with open hands, saying, whatever my lot. Don't forget, that song was written by a man who had just lost his children in a shipwreck. Whatever my lot, you have taught me to say, okay, it's a teaching. It is well with my soul. Full stop. That's it. Okay. So it might be that we need to be willing to surrender the outcome and take away those stories, which at bottom, stories is just a nice way of saying judgments. We've put judgments on the world around us of how it operates. And there are some clear things that we know. There's some clear parameters from the scriptures. If we are walking in active idolatry, then the Lord will hand us over to our own sin and depravity. Okay? If we reject God and his principles, there are consequences. We are not walking in wisdom anymore. We are walking in folly. There are some things we can know. But then we see in the Psalms, why do the wicked prosper? Why does the Lord allow them to become fat on their own bounty and hear the righteous suffer and struggle? Sometimes this world is full of heartache. And friend, that decision you're endeavoring to make, oh, we so want it to be straightforward. I'll do this, but I won't do this. I'll follow this path, but not this path. This one worked for her. I'll do that one. We need to lay it down. We need to set our gaze on Jesus and recognize that despite all of our best efforts, heartache will come our way in one way or another. So then once again, we time travel out. No matter what comes, how do I want to feel about how I showed up in this moment? If we're faithful, we can know I did all I could. I was brave. I sought the Lord. I asked friends to pray. And I did the best I knew to do at the time. And somehow, by the goodness of the Lord Jesus, He creates something beautiful out of our story, even when it just doesn't turn out the way we'd hoped. The last little invitation I have for you, I will call it, what do I need to know? I like this one. It's a little bit more like kind of up in your head. Sometimes it just locks right in. It's exactly what you need. Sometimes it's not the right fit. You need something a little bit more concrete. So some of these other tools might serve you better. Okay? So many times with my coaching clients, in my marriage, with my children, in my own spirit, I've asked the following question. What do I need to know or believe about myself, other people, this decision, or God that will help me move forward in this moment? What do I need to know or believe about myself, another person, God, or this decision so I can move forward? It might be that part of what's holding us back is this. And again, this kind of comes at the stories thing, but it might be another way to catch it. And you might find sometimes when we ask two different questions that are basically the same question, but we ask them in different words, our brains offer us something different. So I want to invite you, ask this question too, and just see what comes up, right? We might find, for example, that we're afraid to move forward with something because at bottom, we don't quite trust ourselves. Okay. So we might say, okay, well, I don't want to open the door to looking at the private school because I'm afraid that I'm going to get swept up in the like kind of fancy, you know, polished, like glossy brochure, and I won't really be able to discern if this is the right decision. I'll just think it's the right decision because it looks good. Okay, right? That's the fear. What do I need to know about God, about myself, about other people? Okay, I need to know in that moment, maybe I need to know I can trust my intuition before the Lord. I can trust the Holy Spirit's leading and guiding, and that I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago when I was so caught up in image that I would make a decision based on that. The Lord has brought me to a place where I can be a wise steward of my own intellect, of what He's given me. And we're safe. We're safe to push on this door because I know I'm not going to tumble down into that same vortex of being concerned about self-image and things like that in the way that I was so long ago, right? I might need to believe the good in other people and that the Lord can use even the sins and the follies that others have. I might need to believe that teachers in a school are doing their best instead of having a judgment and fear. Oh, if I let somebody else teach them, they're going to lead them astray. They don't love Jesus like I do. Maybe I need to trust them. Trust in the well intention of the vast majority of people. Yes, there's sin. Yes, there's folly. There's darkness. There's outright wickedness. But is he still good enough that he's working in the lives of the saints? And there's goodness to be found where I don't have to sit there and go, I'm the only person. I'm the only person who can do this, even though I'm exhausted and my nerves are shot and my adrenals are fatigued and all of the things that happen to us after we have all these babies, right? What if your kids are safe with someone other than you, right? What if I have to trust that? What if I have to trust the goodness of God? For some people, there can be some really hard kind of trauma stories. Maybe we've got friends who are involved in the Christian school shooting in Nashville, right? Maybe we just have come a little bit too close with some of the dark sides of the church and leadership. What if we need to trust they're not all that way? What if we need to trust in the Lord's sovereignty, even in the midst of incredible and very rare tragedies, right? These things can kind of live in the background completely unexamined. So the invitation today is let's examine it. These are just some of the tools, some of my favorites, the MVPs that I pull out when helping people sift through these decisions. Because I cannot tell you how much space is taken up in our brains, okay? Like think of it as like the operating system behind the scenes. Our brains are this operating system. How much space is taken up with these unexamined decisions? And then at the end of the day, friend, a decision not to decide isn't itself a decision. There are consequences to that too. We can't just stand still. We have to keep moving our sweet feet forward with a deep submission to the Lord, trusting that He will make of our lives what He will. He will do in our stories what He will. But He holds those paints and brushes out to us and says, what will you do with your one wild and beautiful life? So I invite you, friend, to just memorialize this process. What came up for you? Were there any decisions that you made? Was there any clarity that you brought? Let me know. I want to hear all about it. And if you need a quick recap of where we went, I'll give it to you real quick. When we're facing a decision, when we're feeling kind of disrupted, a handful of tools are as follows. One of my favorites, we time travel. It's easy to remember. We time travel. We're going to go forward a good stretch of time and then look back to today and say what will cause me to say, I am so glad that I made that decision, or I'm so glad that I operated in that manner around this choice. I left it all on the field. I was loving, I was generous, I was gracious, whatever it is, okay? We're going to recognize that the Lord operates as a lamp. We can't know all the things. What's the next step? Just one next faithful step. That's it, okay? We're going to look at our values and kind of layer them on top of this decision and say, okay, well, at bottom, what is really, truly important to me? And how does that lead me one direction or another? Along with that, we're going to look at the stories we tell ourselves. What's really governing this? Why am I having a hard time pinning this down? What are the ways that I'm trying to go? It's this, I'm ping-ponging back and forth. Why? What am I really afraid of? What do I really believe might happen? And another way to get at that, different way to get at that same kind of information, asking ourselves, what do I need to believe or know about myself, other people, the Lord, or this decision so that I can have clarity and move forward? Okay. So I'm going to seal this time. Lord, I just pray. I pray that there's been a deeper clarity. I pray that there's been a deeper freedom for every woman who listened to this conversation. Equip and guide her in all she's navigating. Lord, we love you. Amen. Okay, friend. As they say in White Squall, that wonderful 90s movie with all the dudes on the boat, the journey's the thing. Take the path with the Father. Take the next step. And trust, as always, you've got this because He has got you. Until next time.
Friend, thank you so much for listening to this most recent episode of Overwhelmed to Overcomer. So listen, the whole idea behind this mission is that when we endeavor to be brave with our lives, we need to do it together. Belonging is key. So if you resonated with the message from this episode, share it with a friend. Do it together. Thank you again. And until next time, never forget, you've got this because He's got you.